It's okay to have an opinion, and it's okay not to be an expert either. That's fine. But don't allow yourself to sit here and just get wrapped around this stuff and be engulfed in it and be upset, walking around all angry. Well, welcome back to the Move Podcast, motivating others virtually every day. Thank you for joining me today. We are officially 1 week and 1 day into the new year, Thursday, January 8th. What a wonderful day, too. We got an awesome matchup coming tonight. We got the Fiesta Bowl going on. We got the Miami Hurricanes facing the Ole Miss Rebels. Let's see if are all the shenanigans going to catch up to Ole Miss finally? Is their luck going to run out? Is Miami going to prevail? Is Miami going to come back and be, the godfathers of college football once again? We'll find out tonight. We got an awesome matchup tomorrow night as well. Going in the Peach Bowl, we got a rematch between Oregon and Indiana. Is Indiana really the best team in the nation? Is Oregon going to get the revenge? We'll find out. And then we got NFL playoffs starting this weekend as well. So we got a packed slate this weekend if you're into sports. Obviously, I'm a diehard sports guy, so I'm super, super pumped. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So we're only 8 days into the new year, and it's already been a hectic year. Between, we got the Venezuela stuff that's going on. And then we still have the ICE stuff that's going on. I just want to kind of give my reaction to these things. First thing I'm going to point out is I am not an expert on these things. I'm not a foreign affairs expert. I'm not a foreign relations expert. I'm not even a military expert in general. Okay, this is just my own opinion for whatever that is worth. Okay, so here's how I take some of these events. We'll start with the Venezuela thing. The Venezuela thing happened first. So we go in, we have this mission. We use our Delta Force, and we go in and we snatch the president / dictator, more dictator. He started off as a president, became a dictator. We went and snatched the dictator out of their country. Sounds like, from what I can gather, the reason is he has been sending his violent offenders to our country. He's also been sending drugs to our country, so on and so forth. And so we went in there and snatched him out because we're not going to let him just send people to the country, okay? So here's what I'll say. I'm not a big fan of being the world police, but if it's affecting American lives in one way or another, then I guess, we got to do something. I don't know if that was the right move. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Time will tell on that. The fear I guess I have is, could it kickstart World War III? This is involving other nations other than Venezuela. And so that can be a little scary. So, I was talking to my son and obviously telling him what he could understand and leaving out the rest. And that was the topic of conversation is, could it kickstart another world war? I've been fortunate in my lifetime. We've never had a world war, knock on wood. I don't really want to see one in my lifetime if we can avoid it. Those just seem to get really nasty. A lot of people die. A lot of innocent people die. And, and I'm also just not, I guess I'm just not a violent human being. I don't really, I know war is necessary when it's necessary. But selfishly, I'd rather not see it, with my own eyes or, I'm obviously of age to the point where I don't really have to worry about being drafted or things like that. And honestly, if I was drafted, I would go happily. I would definitely go and support and fight for my country and our freedoms and things like that. But, it's just, I feel like we're getting to a point to where a world war is almost going to be inevitable. Or inevitable. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to see it that way. But for some reason, with all the conflict going on, I have a hard time seeing it any other way. You know, I do applaud our troops for being able to even pull off a mission like that. I kind of went back, and some of the SEALs that I follow were talking about the mission, and even though the SEAL teams weren't necessarily involved in this specific mission, they understand, because they were the SEAL teams were the ones that went and got Osama bin Laden, so they understand these top secret missions, how you prep for them, blah blah blah. And the prep for this mission was very similar to the same kind of prep that they did for Osama bin Laden. They built a mock house that was identical to the house that, or the building that he was staying in, and they ran drill after drill so they could do it blindfolded, so to speak. So I've been reading some of their stuff, and I applaud the military for being able to pull something like that off. I went to sleep, woke up, and boom, there it is everywhere. I'm like, holy cow! Wait, what happened when I was asleep? It's incredible that our military, hats off to all our men and women serving, because that's incredible that we even have the technology, the smarts, the intelligence, the training, all the things that go into it. It's incredible, and it makes me feel extremely fortunate and safe for me and my family to be in this country where we can be protected by people like that, the men and women in that military. So that's, hats off to them. I don't know the right answer, and I'm not going to act like I'm an expert. I pray for Venezuela. I pray for all Venezuelans, whether they're here or in Venezuela. I hope that at the end of it, they benefit from it, and I guess that's the ultimate goal. I get caught up because I understand it. We have a lot of issues here in our own country, and it's like, why are we solving other people's issues and we don't solve our own issues? But I also understand that this specific issue is kind of impeding on us, and it kind of became our issue in a sense. So I guess I kind of get it. But I don't have the right answer. I pray for all involved, and I'm thankful for our military that they prove to the world on the world stage that, hey, if you want to come mess with us, you need to think twice. It's not going to go well. To the second event that just recently happened that I saw was the ICE event that happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I believe it was yesterday, January 7th. I do believe is when it happened, or either yesterday or the day before. I get them mixed up, but anyway, I don't know. When it comes to law enforcement, military personnel, people in that stature, whether it be a man or a woman, doesn't matter. Complying is what you have to do. You have to comply, whether you're right or wrong. We have a court system in place that if you're correct and they're wrong, in theory, you should be able to go to court and prove your case, and then that's where you would win your case. You don't win your case in the middle of a street in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But at the same time, I also understand it's like, our court system is flawed. You can't rely on our court system to come, and reveal the truth. There was an old saying, and I thought it was just a great saying, is get a conviction at all costs and let the truth fall where it may. And I think of that specific saying, and I don't know who said that. I didn't come up with that, that's for sure. Somebody else had come up with that. I don't remember where I heard it. Get a conviction at all costs and let the truth fall where it may. And I think that rings true in a lot of court cases where they try to prove themselves right instead of let the facts prove it right. So we have a very flawed court system. Some would argue that our court system is sexist, depending on what court cases we're dealing with. Are we dealing with child custody? Because a lot of states are sexist when it comes to child cases. When it comes to parents getting a divorce, there's custody battles. They favorite one or the other. There's favoritism towards a single parent based on gender, not based on facts. So I understand our system is flawed, but I also, handling an issue in the middle of a street is not the right way to go about it. That's never going to go well. Okay, these people in uniform are doing a job that they're paid to do, and their responsibility is to keep law and order and also go home to their family. And if you jeopardize any of those, yeah, they're probably going to use some force against you. Um, have you guys ever done the simulator where you go and you act like you're a police officer and they send people like around a corner and you have to make a split second decision? You guys ever done that? Well, I have, and I don't envy any police officer. I respect all state troopers, sheriffs, officers, because that is a very, it's easy for us to sit back on our couches with our feet propped up and, oh, I'd have done this or I'd have done that, and that's not the reality of it. It's that's real life. That's real life split second decisions that are happening, and when I went and did that simulator thing, it opened my eyes, completely opened my eyes. It's not as easy as you think. I can tell you that. I watched the video. I don't think the video should be circulating online. I didn't purposely watch it. I thought I was watching like a news report. I didn't read all the thing all the way through. Come to find out, I watched the incident happen by some bystander was recording. Thankfully, it wasn't too graphic, but things like that shouldn't really be aired all over the internet. My opinion. We don't need to be seeing things like that. Even though I know things like that are happening, there are people that are in role or in place that handle those situations. I don't think violent things like that is not for the general public. In my opinion, I don't think we handle those things very well. Anyways, I saw the video. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I'm not a police officer. I don't know. I did see a member of this woman's family came out and said that she should have complied. So I thought that was kind of harsh. That's your own family member, but I don't know. I just pray for all involved. I pray for her family. I pray for the officer's family that was involved. I pray for the officers that had to see that. That's horrific, guys. That's the worst of the worst. Is we got people dying, and that's terrible. I don't even really know why she was blocking the road or what she was trying to protect, and I don't know. Like I don't know all the details. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to come out here and say she was right, she was wrong, they were right, they were wrong. I don't know. I just think it's horrific and it's sad, and I don't understand why it keeps happening. Sorry, I'm thirsty today. Yeah, I don't know, but here's the thing. You could literally go around in circles on this stuff, and all these things they're gonna do is they're gonna make you mad. They're gonna frustrate you. They're gonna irritate you. For what? What's the reason? You know, I. It's okay to have an opinion, and it's okay not to be an expert either. That's fine. But don't allow yourself to sit here and just get wrapped around this stuff and be engulfed in it and be upset, walking around all angry. At the end of the day, you still have your responsibilities to take care of. You have your obligations to take care of. Whether you have kids, a wife, a spouse, a friend, a pet, something. Everybody has something or someone or something of that sort. So don't allow these kinds of events that happen in our country and in our world to sit there and just ruin it all for you, right? You see it, I see it, just like anybody else. I'm a human being, so obviously, I see it. I'm going to feel a type of way when I see it initially, but I don't ever allow that to take me over. And I encourage you guys to, it's okay to have thoughts and opinions on these things. That's fine, but just don't overreact to it. Don't make it bigger than what it is. It'll all work its way out, I promise. And if it doesn't, we have our American rights where we can protest that. We can do those things peacefully, right? That we'll have a reason to do so, a valid reason that is. And so let's just see how this all plays out. Let's get the facts. Let's get the details. Let's figure out what those things are first. Let's get those lined out, and then we can go from there. One thing I wanted to touch on, I saw something incredible yesterday, and well, I say incredible, but it made me start thinking. So I don't remember who it was. I don't even know who it was. Like I don't know them personally, but somebody had posted a video. I don't remember what platform it was on. I think it was TikTok, but I don't remember. About I do my Bible study every day and I pray every day, but I just cuss this lady out in traffic. I don't think it's working. That's what it's like. What the video said, or whatever. Um, Here's my response to that, because I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, where they are doing their Bible study. Maybe they're going to church, or they're praying more often, or daily, or they're developing these habits, but yet they still find themselves cussing all the time, getting angry all the time. And they're thinking, I thought I'm supposed to be a more holy person. I'm doing these holy things. Why am I not feeling more holy? Why am I not being holy? The reason is you're only exercising one of your three things. That's why I talk about mind, body, and spirit. You have to tie these things together. When you tie these things together, you will have full control over yourself. Your control over your emotions, your thoughts, your reactions, all of these things you will have full control over. You will control your brain. Your brain will not control you. That's one of the biggest benefits to doing mind, body, and spirit is you end up becoming the captain of your own ship, so to speak. You drive your own ship as your own human body. You control this thing completely. You're disciplined. You're a well-oiled machine. You do these things daily. You're investing in yourself. You're getting smarter each day. You're getting closer to God each day. Each day, you go to the gym. You're becoming that much more fit, that much more in shape. You're adding that many more years to your life. You know, I'm in my mid 30s, and I literally, and I tell people this, and it's the truth. I feel better today than I did in any of my 20s, like legitimately. Um, and I look better than I did in my 20s as well. So like it's, I don't. You can't just do one of the things or two of the things. You have to do all three of the things to get the benefit of it. Okay, if you only do the Bible study stuff, yeah, it'll help. It'll help, but it's not going to cure your situation of road rage, or your situation of snapping at your kids or your spouse or your family or whatever the case may be. Mind, body, and spirit. So old me, I'll give you an example. Old me, if I felt you wronged me, or you made me upset, or you made me mad, I would just come at your throat, right? You're going to know about it. You're going to hear about it. You're going to know exactly how I feel, you know, so on and so forth. You get the picture. Now, most of the time, I'll just walk away, because, I don't, if I feel like it's going to be very confrontational, I'll just walk away. It just is what it is. Either they can think what they want. At the end of the day, I can sleep with how I feel, and I know exactly why I feel the way that I feel, and I feel very justified for feeling that way, and that's walk away. It just is what it is. They can think whatever they want. I don't care. I'm not out to win a popularity contest. I'm not out to see how many people I can get to speak highly of me. I'm out to live a life of purity, and I want to live life, when I want to stand for something. When somebody says, who's that Steve guy? You can say exactly who that Steve guy is. There is no question who that guy is. Okay, it's not, well, it depends on who he's around or where he's at, or no, there is none of that. You get rid of all of those things. You just stay right here, and that's okay. You're going to lose some people along the way, and that's okay. You're going to gain some people along the way, and that's what's cool. Okay. The other thing I wanted to touch on today, and this is something my wife and I were talking about, is we see more and more people around my age, and this has become a big topic of discussion. And I've seen a lot of things, especially around the holidays, where families have really just fallen apart. That there was videos of like empty houses, like, oh, I remember before grandma passed, this house would be full, kids would be in the yard, whatever the case may be. But you're seeing it more and more and more, how families are just kind of falling apart. And it maybe not necessarily nasty, maybe not hooting and hollering and yelling at each other, but not really talking, not really associating. Holidays aren't the same anymore. Obviously, numbers have dwindled down. People have passed. People have moved. People have, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, families aren't what families used to be as a whole. Now, I know there are still some families that are out there that are just all 100 of them get together for every holiday, right? There are some of those, and that's a real thing. But I think that's becoming less and less and less of a thing. And I kind of wanted to weigh in, and I touched a little bit on it. I don't remember what podcast it was, a couple podcasts ago, about how, I think social media does play a little bit of a role in that. And I think there's some other factors. And I think it kind of goes in line with, you see kids today, the suicide rate in our youth is just climbing and climbing and climbing. And I remember being a kid, and they were vaguely starting to talk about it then. This was back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. Our numbers today are way worse than they were then, right? It's becoming even more and even more and even more. I don't really think it's a kid problem. I think it's a parent problem. I think it's an adult problem. I think we are struggling how to raise our kids. And that's why I come on here all the time and I talk about parenting, because I don't necessarily think it's the kids. I don't. I think it's adults, it's parents, it's our education system. Um, I'm not gonna mention. I'm not here to bash anybody specifically or any, but I know of a place. It's a small place, and they've had, I can't even tell you how many suicides. At least 12 that I probably know of, within the area, which is just insane because of how small it is. And yet, then I see something not too long ago where, a kid stood up for themselves to beat the crap out of another kid. I'm like, how many times is that school system going to fail these kids? Like, at what point is enough enough? And you stand up and you say, okay, no more of this. And you figure out who the root of the problem is, or what group of kids is the root of the problem, and you come down on them like you would never believe. So you send a message, a loud message, and not to mention, who are the parents? Where are they at in this whole equation? And this is just one example, and this is not the only issue. This is everywhere. That's the problem. It's everywhere. My son likes to play. What was that thing? The VR, virtual reality thing. He likes to play on that thing every once in a while. And the good thing I like about it is you just turn the volume up. You can hear what the kids are saying, and you can hear what he's saying, obviously. But he doesn't just have headphones on, or where you can't really hear. And you hear some of these kids talk on there, and it's like, is that person real? Is it really a kid talking that way? It is disgusting. Like, where are your parents? Like, and that's why he's very limited on this stuff, because you're not going to act like that. You're not going to associate with people like that. It's okay that that stuff happens. Like, you need to know that stuff happens. Don't shelter yourself. But we're not going to handle that. We're not going to put up with that. We're not going to address that. We walk away from that. We just let that go where that goes, because it's not our place. But at the same time, it's like, man, as parents, we are failing our kids miserably. Miserably failing our kids. We've got to do a much, much better job at this. This whole parenting thing. We've got to do a much better job at this. I talk a lot about investing time into your kids, investing time into your family. This is what I mean. You got to spend time with them, develop them, nurture them. My son has a lot of freedom when it comes to life. I want him to make mistakes. I just want to be next to him when he makes those mistakes, so I can tell him it's going to be okay. Did you learn your lesson? What did you learn here? What are we going to do different next time? Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to watch your kid's heart get broke, or spirit get broke, or whatever the case may be, but they also need to understand that that's life. And there are dirty people out there, and how do you respond when somebody does you dirty? Or how do you respond when your heart is broken, or whatever the case may be? How do you respond? Because it's your job as a parent to coach and teach your kid on how to respond and how to handle their emotions, and how to speak about their emotions and how they are feeling, and the importance of not bottling things up, the importance of addressing an issue that you have with somebody. If somebody's bothering you, somebody's bullying you, but hey, I don't really appreciate this. What's the problem? And addressing it head on. You don't have to be crazy confrontational. Like, that was kind of a confrontational response. But I'm just giving you an example of, teach your kids on how to handle a situation properly. And, I'm not going to get into the education system part of it. It is a massive part of it, I believe, my own personal belief. But I think there's just a lot of things that go on in a school setting that add fuel to the fire when it comes to youth and suicides, and bullying and depression and mental illness in our youth. they play a massive role in this as well. But I'm going to stick to the parenting side because I feel like at home you have the ability to correct a lot of these things. You also have the ability to forecast some things. You know, if you teach your kid on how to talk and how to communicate and how to not bottle things up, next thing you know, they're coming home and saying, "Hey, this is what's going on. I don't like it," or "Hey, this is what's happening." And then now you as a parent know this. Now you can go address this yourself and stand up and speak out for your kids. And so, I think it's mightily, mightily, mightily important that we address these things firsthand with our kids, teach our kids how to be respectful, how to communicate, how to use your words, not just text. How do you actually speak? It's so important, guys, and it's not something you can't just go to your kid and be like, "Hey, tell me how you feel." Like that's something you got to build that bond, that rapport. And back to the full family thing, I think that's one of the biggest missing pieces is, for some reason, we have this sense of entitlement. Like, I am entitled to be in your life because I'm so and so in your life. I'm your dad. So I better be like, well, that doesn't, yeah, that matters a little bit for a little while. But it gets to a point where you got to earn your spot. You can't just hang on the fact that, well, I raised you or I did these things for you. Well, what are you doing currently? Are you supporting me? Are you there for me? Are you showing up? Like those things matter, right? Even if you live 1,000 miles apart, are you calling? Are you checking up? Are you doing these things? Like those things matter. You can't just hang your hat on, well, this is my relationship to you, so you have to do this. No, we live in a world and we live in a time where it's not that way anymore. And, social media, in my opinion, has really been the one thing that pushed this further and further and further. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I just think that's the fact. And so, I would love to see, us as individuals understand what's happening, why it's happening, then understand, okay, well, if this is how it's going and this is the way it is, well, this is how I can respond. That's all I'm trying. I'm just trying to educate so we can respond the correct way. If you're out there and you have, this is just an example, if I'm a dad and I have a kid out there that's kind of not really talking to me or cutting me off, I would look in the mirror. I would look in the mirror, figure out, okay, well, what am I doing that's making them feel that way about me? And what have I done? And then I'll go have a discussion, a heart-to-heart discussion, right? To try to rekindle that, because you only get one life. You don't get time back. So all time missed is time missed that you're never going to get back. And so, I would love, my goal is, the reason I even talk about this is my goal is this year on my social media, this year when it comes to the holidays, I want to see photos and videos of families with packed houses. I want to see people thriving, people smiling, and not all these posts where it's just you're upset. The holiday's not the same. The holiday's dead. The holiday's empty. I don't want to see that. I want to see families together. I want to see families happy. And so that's my goal. So I'm trying to just help rekindle all of those things. So anyways, that is all. I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to go have a beach day. It's a beautiful day down here in sunny Florida. It's going to be 84 degrees, so we're going to go out and enjoy the sunshine today. Hopefully you all enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the football games going on. And take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Be disciplined. God bless. Thank you, guys.